Hi guys, Catriona here from Slange. Back in my living room. So hopefully there's a bit more light, not that you guys want it. But I thought I would first thank Leanne yesterday for her yoga session that she did for us. It looked fantastic, and I have not long finished my live yoga hit class with her this evening, which nearly killed me. So apologies for being a wee bit later than scheduled. I just had to get myself in order. Hi, we've got a couple of guys coming into the chat here on Instagram. Here we are. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Catriona. I have been a tour guide for a while, but I also run Scottish History Police and am the Clan Commissioner for the Clan Ramsay. But I'm also very involved in my local history here of Inverclyde. Hi, little wooden sign, and Christopher J. Watt and others that are just coming into the chat. It's a bit informal. We just come in just to make sure we're all happy and healthy and safe and at home. And obviously, we're all missing Scotland, or at least I know a lot of you are. So I'm using this opportunity to kind of bring a little bit of Scotland to you. And we need to do that. I need to come and you contact me, Taste History Tours Ayrshire, because we do a lot of stuff down in Ayrshire. A lot of my family come from there. Oh, another wee thing, I also do genealogy. Yes, I am in Inverclyde. Yes, you're in Greenock. I was through Greenock. I'm just sitting in Greenock right now. I was driving through Greenock earlier. Hi, Des. That's where my granny lived in Greenock for a long time. Anyway, you'll notice I like to drink a wee gin. Just, because it's evening time. I'm hoping that you guys don't get a problem. I'm hoping I don't get a problem, but I'm hopefully not. I'm saying it as if it's a funny thing. Anyway, so the purpose of this evening is to talk about the Greenock Martyrs. And I see we've got someone locally at the moment from Inverclyde, and I don't know if you'll know anything about the Greenock Martyrs, and it's pertains to the 1820s martyrs, the 1820s uprising, where predominantly led by the weaving community. They started an uprising to get the right, primarily the right to vote. Hi, Mark. Is that Dunedin? So we've got someone I think in from New Zealand. Anyway, so I'm just going to go into it and then I'll come back and just do my wee highs. But thanks to everybody who's coming in so far. So what happened was the weaving community really rose up because they were able to set their own working week. So what that meant, they were quite a sought after profession. So they usually used to work about 4 days a week, which gave them, and I'm not saying it was easy work either, it was quite a hard job, but they would give themselves a 3 days off, in which time they would read themselves and read literature and whatever, and make a bit of a nuisance of themselves by reading things that were considered seditious at the time. And so they thought, why is it that we can't form unions if we have a problem with our employment or our employer, sorry, and why can't we vote? This isn't fair. Hi, Ohio. Hi, Renee. So this was a major issue for the people at the time. And so they kind of rose up and they had a wee rising, and I'm just going to read you a wee bit about it, just briefly, and then I'll come into it, into the Greenock connection. So a lot of people think that what they associate or call the Radical War as a Scottish conflict. Hi, Claire. When essentially it was something that was kind of starting to spread across the whole of Europe. You saw just after the Napoleonic Wars. So what you see is a lot of people coming back. They've been repressed. They come to back home, and then they notice that nothing's really changing, and they've just sacrificed themselves for liberating the UK from Napoleon. Bearing in mind, this is not so long after the French Revolution, really. So there's a lot of revolution in the air anyway. Now, let's just see. So it kind of starts really in, like I said, across the UK, but I'm just going to come into the radicals and what they were. So let's come. So the end of the Napoleonic Wars brought economic depression. And in 1816, some 40,000 people attended a meeting on Glasgow Green to demand more representative government and to end of the Corn Laws, which kept all the food prices high. The Industrial Revolution affected handloom weavers in particular, and unrest grew despite attempts by the authorities to employ the workless and open relief centres to relieve hardship. I'm going to put that in inverted commas there. So the gentry feared that the kind of revolutionary turmoil that had been seen in France and Ireland could take place in Britain, and I should say in mainland Britain, because at this time Ireland was still part of Britain, and there was a great recruiting of volunteer regiments through the Scottish lowlands and Scottish borders. Walter Scott urged his border neighbours to appeal at this crisis to the good sense and loyalty of the lower orders. And basically, they start something called the Revolutionary Road, which you'll see up on in Edinburgh on Arthur's Seat. So they were trying to give people work to stop them rebelling, essentially. But let's just go back in. So that's the kind of the setting that we're starting to see. Let me just see. But let's just go back into it. So there was something in 1820. There was something that was called the Cato Street Conspiracy, which they basically were trying to attempt to assassinate members of government in London. So they were starting to become stricter in their measures, and particularly in Scotland. So what they did is they started to make it very difficult for people to, meet in crowds and all these other sorts of things. Let me just see, because this is so much writing. Now, let's go to what it actually was. So on Monday, the 3rd of April, all work stopped over a wide area of central Scotland, including Stirlingshire, Dumbartonshire, Renfrewshire, where we are now, Lanarkshire and Ayrshire, with an estimated total of around 60,000 people stopping work. Reports came in that men were carrying out military drills at points around Glasgow. Foundries and forges had been raided, and iron files and dyer poles taken to be made as pikes. In Kilbarchan, which is not too far from here, soldiers found men making pikes. In Stewarton, around 60 strikers were dispersed. In Balfron, around 200 men had assembled in some sort of action. Pikes, gunpowder, and weapons called wasps, a kind of sort of javelin, and clegs, a barbed kind of shuttlecock to throw at horses, were offered for sale. So there's quite a lot of things happening. Now, Paisley, everything always starts in Paisley. That's where, if anyone doesn't know, kind of suburb, it wasn't its own village, but a kind of suburb of Paisley now, Elderslie, is where William Wallace was born. But anyway, In Paisley, the local reformers committee met under command of their drill instructor, but scattered when Paisley was put under a curfew. The government troops were ready in Glasgow, including the Rifle Brigade, the 83rd Regiment of Foot, the 7th and 10th Hussars, and Samuel Hunter's Glasgow sharpshooters. In the evening, 300 radicals briefly skirmished with a party of cavalry, but no one came to serious harm that day. So now we've got the next part, and this is the March on Carron. I hope I'm not boring you guys, but it's incredibly fascinating. It's really important that we know exactly what happened that day. Before I do, hello everyone. So let's continue. So they had a march on Carron. In Glasgow, John Craig led around 30 men to make for the Carron Company Ironworks in Falkirk, telling them that weapons would be there for taking, but the group scattered when intercepted by a police patrol. By coincidence, a detachment of hussars was waiting in ambush with the intention of catching men marching off from Glasgow to Carron, but were disappointed. Craig was brought before a magistrate and fined, but the magistrate paid his fine for him. That's a very crucial part because he's one of the members of the group. He's the head chap, and clearly there was some, backhanders going on. On the next day, Tuesday, the 4th of April, Duncan Turner assembled around 60 men to march to Carron. While he carried out organising work elsewhere, half the group dropped out. The rest accepted his assurances that they would pick up supporters along the way. Their leader was Andrew Hardy and was given a torn half card to be matched with the other half in his possession of a supporter in Kindorit, which is nearby, on the way to Carron. There, John Baird, another leader, was visited around 11 p.m. by John King, who gave them the other half card. At around 5 a.m. on 5th of April, Hardy arrived with 25 men soaked through. Baird had expected a small army, but when King urged them on, saying he would go on ahead to rally supporters. Sadly, that never happened. One of the men named Keane went with him, and Baird and Hardy set off with a total of 30 men. On the way, they twice came across travellers, but let them go. The travellers passed the information on to the authorities at Kilsyth and Stirling Castle. King arrived again, though Keane was not with him, and told him that he had instructions that they had to go quickly to find supporters, while Baird and Hardy were to leave the road and wait at Bonnymuir. Now, Bonnymuir is a really important part because this is where they have what's known as the Battle of Bonnymuir, which is more of a skirmish. So I'm trying to kind of skim through some of this for you. So we have 16 hussars and 16 yeomanry troops had been ordered on the 4th of April to leave Perth and to go to protect Carron. They left the road at Bonnybridge early on 5th of April, made straight for the slopes of Bonnymuir. As the newspaper subsequently reported, on observing this force, the radicals cheered and advanced to a wall over which they commenced firing at the military. Some shots were then fired by the soldiers in return, and after some time the cavalry got through an opening in the wall and attacked this party, who resisted till overpowered by the troops, who succeeded in taking 19 of them prisoners. And then they were taken off to Stirling Castle. 4 of the radicals were wounded, and the Glasgow Herald sniggered at the small number of radicals encountered, but wondered that the conspiracy appears to be more extensive than almost anyone imagined. Radical principles are too widely spread and too deeply rooted to vanish without some explosion, and the sooner it takes place, the better. So that just puts into who and what was actually going on. So there was physical unrest, which then took place. And sadly, those men were taken prisoner just for the right and the desire to have rights to vote and to form unions. And in Scotland, anyway, to have their own government. So that was really important. Now, this is what's really important for us here in Greenock, because today is the anniversary of the massacre at Greenock. I will post, I've got some pictures of the Radical War Monument in Greenock that I took today. On my way to the shops, guys, I wasn't going somewhere I shouldn't be going. I was on my way to the shops, and my grandfather, who is a member of the 1820 Society, asked if I was going past on my way just to take a wee picture, because they have laid some wreaths and flowers, and Inverclyde Council has done some things for them as well. So that was quite important for me, and I did a quick drive-by and took a picture from inside my car. Hi everybody, I hope you're enjoying this little bit of almost unheard of Scottish history. Most of you guys know about all these people running about the Highlands and from Outlander, but really there was a lot going on a lot afterwards, and much closer to the border than most people would like or would expect. So that's an important part of it. But I'll just go into what happened in Greenock, okay? So a number of the suspected ringleaders were imprisoned at various jails around the region. At the same time, the Port Glasgow volunteers served in Paisley during the strike, and when returning home on Saturday the 8th of April, escorted 5 prisoners to be taken on to Greenock Jail in a cart. On the way through Port Glasgow, their commanders responded to rumours by increasing the escort from 30 to 80 men. And they met with minor hostility while marching through the towns of Crawfordsdyke. Through the town of Crawfordsdyke. They reached Greenock Jail, and while handing over the prisoners, they had to shelter themselves from stone's throw from higher ground to the south of the jail. Hi, Urban Fit, you are another local person. A hostile crowd gathered, and shots fired in the air to calm the situation, apparently. As the volunteers returned along Cathcart Street, the mob continued to increase, throwing stones, bottles, and from windows and closes. The volunteers suffered bruising, and as they approached Rue End Street, opened sporadic fire, killing and wounding several of the crowd. The mob pursued the volunteers into Crawfordsdyke, then returned to break open the jail. A magistrate urged the crowd to desist, but with no forces to resist them, agreed to release the prisoners, who then escaped. A large group set off to burn down Port Glasgow, but were halted at the town's boundary by armed townsfolk who had barricaded the Devolls Glen Bridge. Greenock's magistrates arrived and dispersed the crowd. Nobody knows that this happened in Greenock, eh? It's quite hi Sharon. It's if you go where the Radical Monument is, if anyone who's watching is from Greenock, you go to Bank Street, just the bottom of Bank Street, and you'll see a little monument sitting at the end of the street, and it's got like 2 hands like this. And that's to symbolise it. And then just up on the kind of wall of the Well Park, they've got all the names of the people who were killed during the fire. Now, obviously, let's just come and see if I can get the names, because they just shot at the crowd. Now, the way that's been mentioned is slightly biased to make it look like it wasn't deliberate, but really they just fired on the crowd. They just fired on the crowd. And a little bit of local folklore for you. I don't know how correct or if it could ever be corroborated, but the story goes that they asked the Greenock militia to fire upon the crowd, and they refused to do so. And it was when the Port Glasgow militia then were asked to fire on the crowd, and they did, which is why to some extent, we're all in, I don't even know how to say it, Inverclydeans. We're all from Inverclyde, but there has been a bit of animosity between Greenock and Port Glasgow, and they say that it stems from that moment when the Port Glasgow militia were happy enough to fire at women and children in a crowd. And I'll just explain here. A list of those killed and wounded was as follows. There were 18 casualties who survived. However, of the dead, there was an 8-year-old boy and a 65-year-old woman. No, sorry, 65-year-old woman was badly wounded. An 8-year-old boy, wee Jamie McPhail, and I'm just going to give you his name here. Give me a wee second. Here we go. So we have, James McGilp. We've got wee James McGilp, who was aged 8. Sorry guys, this is just so small, it's hard to read it. Here we go. Let's just go into it. So we have wee James McGilp. He was the youngest. Let me just get all the Greenock. Here we go. I just want to get all the names of those who fell, because I think it's important, okay? So these are the people who died, okay? So we have Adam Clephane, who was 48. Wound under the groin, he was pronounced dead. Archibald Drummond, aged 50, shot through the cheek, dead. James Kerr, 17, shot through the belly, dead. John McWhinney, 65, shot through the shoulder and chest, dead. Hugh Patterson, 14, shot through the leg. His leg was then amputated. John Patrick, 30, shot through the thigh. David McBride, 14, shot through the cheek and jaw, but he survived. A. McKinnon, 17, shot through the chest and arm, likely to die. Catherine Turner, 65, shot through the leg amputated. John Boyce, 33, shot through the belly, dead. George Tillery, 25, shot through the thigh, survived. Robert Spence, 11, shot in the foot. William Lindsay, 15, shot dead on the spot. James McGilp, 8, shot in right thigh, dead. Gilbert MacArthur, 18, shot through the left thigh, just a flesh wound. John Turner, 22, flesh wound. Peter Cameron, 14, flesh wound. John Gunn, 24, shot through calf and left leg. So it was thought that there are so many leg injuries because some of the crowd had tried to wrestle the guns from the volunteers. So there you have it. And I just want to read you what it says on the memorial. If you go down to the Radical War Memorial, it says, in memory of those wounded and killed on the 8th of April 1820, during a protest against the imprisonment of those who led the campaign for better social and economic conditions in a period of insurrection known as the Radical War. 8 died, the youngest of whom was 8 years old, and the oldest 65. So it's just important that we remember. Oh, you can just see my face like that. Sorry, guys. You just see my wee eyes like that. on Facebook. So that's really the 1820s. It was Bonnie has just asked the question. I'm just going to come in and bring some of the questions in. Hi, Patrick. Hi, New York. Bonnie, what is the year again? It's 1820. So today is the bicentennial of the event. 200 years ago that took place. Brian formerly lived in Greenock, Pennsylvania. Oh, you're just checking in. Yay. Okay. Hi, Shelley. Hi, Jennifer. Getting your wee daily dose of Scotland. So there we have it. So if we got any questions about this period of history, I mean, there's so much information, to be fair. It is quite an important part of the Scottish identity, because arguably it led to the labour movements and everything else. Now, I was reading or listening to the radio the other day, and you have to see this in context of a 19th century event, in that, they were looking for more of a male suffrage than a female one. It was more about men having the right to vote and form unions and everything else. Bonnie, Bonnie here on our Facebook, I believe there is a James Kerr, My Genealogy. You are probably, considering you have some Greenock blood there, Bonnie, you probably are. There's lots of Kerrs here, Kerr. So, yeah, Kerr. It's a good name. It's a good, strong surname. So that's the Radical War, but you can go up. I mean, I like to see it as Greenock's very own Bastille. So today we commemorate Greenock's Bastille Day, where the people of Greenock marched and rioted at the prison, and managed to have the prisoners escape. And also the fact that they tried to get hold of the guys in Port Glasgow as well. That's quite hardcore. But we've all got a wee bit of Port Glasgow in us as well, if you're from Inverclyde. Because I know we've got some folk from Gourock. You've got Greenock, Greenock, Port Glasgow. They're the main towns that make up Inverclyde. And then obviously Paisley, you can go to Paisley to see the martyrs, the grave of the martyrs, and there's also the Martyrs Memorial. I haven't even told you how the martyrs, how Hardy and Wilson were actually killed. So let's go into that, because you might be interested to see how these men were executed in 1820. So bear in mind, guys, this is 1820. This isn't 17, 16, 15. This is 1820. So the trials and executions. In various towns, a total of 88 men were charged with treason. Now, this is another important thing, because we didn't have a treason law in Scotland. This is something that they brought in to Scotland from English law, which actually goes against the 1707 Act of Union, where we had the rights to keep our law to ourselves. So they actually bring in, I mean, it's not the first time they used it, but these guys were tried for treason under English law. Okay, so let's just see. At both Glasgow and Stirling, a special Royal Commission, Court of Oyer and Terminer was set up to prosecute. James Wilson was arrested and on the 20th of July was put on trial at Glasgow, charged with 4 counts of treason. The jury found him not guilty on 3 counts. Guilty of compassing to levy war against the king in order to compel him to change his measures, and recommend mercy. but he was sentenced to death. 5 of his colleagues were found not guilty, and another was discharged. On the 1st of August, a jury ignored the abrasive judge and refused to convict 2 of the weavers. At Stirling on the 4th of August, the judge advised, "To you, Andrew Hardy and John Baird, I can hold out little or no hope of mercy, since, as you were the leaders, I am afraid that example must be given by you." James Wilson was hanged and beheaded on the 30th of August, watched by some 20,000 people, first remarking to the executioner, "Did you ever see such a crowd, Thomas?" These are martyrs, folks. These are the martyrs I'm talking about now. On the 8th of September, Hardy and Baird were executed in Stirling, watched by a crowd of 2,000. The Sheriff of Stirling, Ranald MacDonald, required that they make no political speech from the gallows, but agreed that they could speak upon the Bible. Baird concluded his brief speech by saying, "Although this day we die an ignominious death by unjust laws or our blood, which in a very few minutes shall flow on the scaffold, will cry to heaven for vengeance, and may it be the means of our afflicted countrymen's speedy redemption." Hardy then spoke of our blood being shed on the scaffold for no other sin but seeking the legitimate rights of our ill-used and downtrodden beloved countrymen. Then, when the sheriff angrily intervened, he concluded by asking those present to go quietly home and read your Bibles and remember the fate of Hardy and Baird. They were then hung and beheaded. It was the last beheading in the UK, a few months after the Cato Street plot. And then we'll continue on. Thomas McCulloch, John Barr, William Smith, Benjamin Moore, Alan Murphy, Alexander Latimer, Andrew White, David Thompson, James Wright, William Clarkson, Thomas Pike, Robert Gray, James Cleland, Alexander Hart, Thomas McFarlane, John Anderson, Andrew Dawson, John McMillan, and the 15-year-old Alexander Johnston were in due course transported to the penal colonies in New South Wales or Tasmania. Peter Mackenzie, a Glasgow journalist, campaigned unsuccessfully to have them pardoned and published a small book called The Spy System, including the exploits of Mr. Alex Richmond, the notorious government spy of Sidmouth and Castlereagh. And then eventually on the 10th of August 1835, 15 years later, they were all granted an absolute pardon. However, most of them decided not to come back. So there you have it. That was how those men were executed. And I hope that you raise a wee glass to Baird and Hardy for what they did, and Wilson for starting what they did, and all of those 8 in Greenock who died for just trying to do what's right, including a wee 8-year-old wee boy, James McGilp. So it was quite a significant time in our history, and I hope I have educated you all on this lesser known part of our history. And you can see, as Scots have still got some fight in us. Any other questions, folks? I hope you enjoyed that. And there's a wee lag. I'll just see who we've got on Insta. We've got folks from Weems Bay. Oh. There we go. Another Inverclyde town, or village, I should say. Well, I hope you all go and have a wee read after this. And I'm going to just see who else is on. We've got North California on, TL McDougall, good Scottish name. We've got Daniel from Ayrshire. Hi, Daniel. John Logan from Colorado. So hi, guys. Thanks for joining in. I'm just going to see if I can see any of the other comments because it is a bit slow. So just bear with me a wee second. There we go. Aha, there we go. So we've got everybody. I think that's pretty much us. Hi, Ian. Hi. You guys had some stuff happening down there as well. Well, not quite the world, but in Manchester you had similar unrest. So there you go. It's the less popular bit. I'm sure if I was talking about clans, you might get that. Let's see, very informative. Thank you. I will read more about it. Didn't realise the history when we drove through Greenock on the way to Gourock to the Dunoon ferry. You'll do it next time. Yeah, I hope so. Next time you're on the way to Dunoon, you just come into Greenock and you go. The best way to find where this memorial is. So if you come into Greenock and you'll see Ginger the horse, she's on the main road, or he's on the main road. He is Greenock's own Kelpie. He's also been sculpted by Andy Scott, who's the chap who did the Kelpies, and it's a beautiful horse to symbolise Greenock's place in the Industrial Revolution, and also a bit of local folklore. And if you just go down that street, that takes you down towards the big town hall building, and you'll see on your left you've got the old Mid-Kirk, and just up that street, that's Bank Street, and the prison sat right at the top of that street, and the prisoners, they came down and they walked. If anyone knows where the Jimmy Watt bar is, the crowd made their way down that way, so you'll pass the James Watt bar on the way to the town hall on your right, and that's actually apparently where most of the souls were actually shot. So there you have it. But it's still, you know, it's the oldest part of Greenock as well. There you've got William Street, just along, and William Street is just off of the square, Cathcart Square, where these men were running down from Bank Street down Cathcart Square down Cathcart Street, and just straight at, if you're Bank Street, straight ahead is William Street, and that's the oldest street in Greenock. We've got the oldest house there, the Dutch Gable house, and that's also the street that the inventor James Watt was born, although we don't know which house. It looks like they knocked it down. But there you have it. So I'll go into James Watt maybe another day, the inventor of the modern world and steam power and so on. But Greenock is a very interesting place. If you just, like most places are, I'm sure, if you just rub underneath the surface a little bit, and you'll find quite a lot. So there you go. I'm just going to let you all go. Slanja va. Good health to you all, and I hope you're all staying safe and inside. Tomorrow we're going to be doing our kids corner again, and we're actually going to do the story about the Kelpie. So it's called The Secret of the Kelpie, I think. I might be wrong. but I'll be telling the story with Tamsin again. Yeah, it's going to be, if you have any children, I'll be doing a bit earlier. You can always show them afterwards if it's not bedtime for you, but it will be bedtime for us. Thanks, Chaz. And Bonnie's just quickly saying 19 Cathcart Street and 80 Belleville is where your great-grandparents lived. Well, yeah, Cathcart Street, you'll know that when you come back to Greenock. Des. So I hope you all enjoy your evenings and your days, wherever you are in the world. And thank you, everybody. Stay safe. There, my cat. One of the cats is not very good at. He's not got stealth. He's not the stealthiest creature. Anyway, good night, folks. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Mwah.